Alrighty then, folks. What's up, everybody? How we doing? Welcome to the stream there. Welcome to more Zoo Tycoon. I've been pumped to play this. Crazy Man Gaming, you found the channel through Geekism. This is your first time watching. Hey, welcome. Thanks so much for hanging out, Crazy Man Gaming. Appreciate that, buddy. And Deer, yes, I almost said your name was something more. Deer, welcome in. How we doing? So, Diego plays Zoo Tycoon 2. I don't own it, and I never played it. So if someone would like to gift it to me, I would absolutely try it and play it. But yeah, I didn't play it back in the day. I only played the original Zoo Tycoon. Is it gonna work? Please work. It worked. Cool. But now I can't see chat. Try again. Take two. But yeah, I played the original one, and then so I don't even know when the second one came out, but it was not on my radar for this, that, or the other reason. So yeah. I do know that you can get it on Amazon, I believe, though. And I have looked up build videos of it. ASMR moment. Oh, that was so good. And it looks like a fun little game there. But yeah, no, I never played it. So, but if you all were here a few days ago, when was it? It was 2 days ago that we played this. Hey, what's up, Freemasons? Creating your alternative account for YouTube streams. Nice. Well, luckily, I mentioned it, I don't think you were here before, but I mentioned before, we're only going to be streaming from like YouTube, and content for YouTube will all, you know, everything will go through YouTube now. So we won't be like switching around and doing a whole bunch of crazy stuff like we've been doing, kind of thing. So yeah, that's right. We're in debt, but we're making money. We just keep building too much. So we have to stop. I just have to stop. You only played the second one. It's the one of the best that you played. Nice, nice. I definitely didn't play the third Zoo Tycoon because I saw that one, but it didn't look good. It just didn't look great. And from the reviews that I saw and heard, it wasn't great. Excuse me. But yeah, I've always loved the first one here. I've always loved the first one. So while we're waiting for us to make money, I guess we'll just, I wish you could zoom in and out. That's one thing I wish you could do. Kind of show around the zoo here if you haven't seen it yet. We have our Moosey Meese. Pippi commented and said that the plural of a moose was mooch or something like that. Anyways, we have our one moose here. And our super duper looks crowded with vegetation. But yeah, his name's Goose. Goose the Moose, that's right. It's Goose the Moose. This is kind of like our North American section over here, if you can't tell. Then we have our bison. American bison there. So, how's it going, Crazy Man Gaming? Good to see ya. I saw your message earlier there. So I'm glad you found the channel through Geekism. That's pretty awesome. Appreciate you hanging out. Zoo Tycoon 2 was awesome. You've only played the first one as well? Nice. Yeah. Yeah, I kept trying to remember like when that game came out, because I know that Zoo Tycoon 1, this one, came out in 2001. I feel like I'm yelling. And that was 2001, so I was like 12 or 11 years old. So yeah, I think when the other one came out, I think I was probably like 13 or 14 years old. So I was probably just getting into like high school and stuff. I think that's when I was playing like Call of Duty and Modern Warfare and oh my gosh, Battlefield, and yeah, if I was maybe Roller Coaster Tycoon 2, but never the second Zoo Tycoon. There was a third Zoo Tycoon. Yeah, it was on the Xbox. I don't know, maybe you did hear of it and it's not officially called Zoo Tycoon 3. I think it's called like Zoo Tycoon. I think it's just called Zoo Tycoon. It was on the Xbox, or maybe like the one. But you had just plopped down exhibits and you drove a golf cart around. That's it. Like not like you built the exhibits and plopped them down. Literally, it was pre-built exhibits and you just plopped them down. It was bad. Hey, Arbase, what's up, buddy? From underneath a really warm blanket. Did you fart in it? Is that why it's warm? Why are you having trouble getting to all of these habitats? It's easy to get to these habitats. Maybe we just need some more. Hey, we're making money again, everyone. We're making money. Hip hip. That's where you say hooray. Hopefully everyone said hooray at that moment. Oh yeah, I was showing off the zoo, and there's a duck pond. For that pond full of ducks. Crazy. We have our camel. Doesn't promote me smoking though. Dang it, we're out of money again. We keep making a little bit of money and then we lose back down to like 2,300. So we need to cut, like, we need to fire someone, or what do we need to do? We need to do, well, let's increase the price. How much is it's $30 to get in here. You're right, it should be 32. All right, let's see about that. It was good, but not as good as 1 or 2. Yeah, I didn't like it at all. I like driving around the golf cart. That was cool, right? SeaWorld Adventure Parks Tycoon. You also used to play that. I remember those games. SeaWorld wouldn't be able to release a game. Period. Oh gosh, I forgot about the cheetah. He's probably pissed. Needs more foliage. Yeah, right on. We have a cheetah out here. That's sick. That's sick. But yeah, I feel like, where's our menu for our, there we go. I think we need to get rid of some, no! Things are dying of old age. Are you gonna die soon? Hey, don't die. It has no money. I know it doesn't have any money. Oh, it just died. Yeah, I mean, it got old and died. That sucks, though. It wasn't the male, was it? Where do I see if they're a male? You're a female. You're a male. Okay, good. You two need to bork. You two need to pork. And I mean on stat. You only played the first one and some knockouts, which were not bad. You did find your cat again. I didn't know it was missing, but I'm glad you found it. Oh no, the zebra died. God. That's a female and that's a... Just stop, just... Oh no, we only have 2 females? Heck. Well, they can't make kids. They cannot make kiddos. There's some things also about Zoo Tycoon that I miss in Planet Zoo, like being able to interact with them, like the walk first-person camera. You can do first-person camera in Planet Zoo. You have to click on a staff member, and hopefully in the main game they do like in Planet Coaster, where you can just click on a guest. You need to rename them Tegid Cam, Tegidcam, Tegid Cam. And that brings you down into a first-person mode, and then you can do that. And if you double-click on your animals, that brings you into like a first-person mode with them. So I don't know if that's what you meant with the interacting and stuff. Hey, we have money again, but we're gonna lose it here pretty quick. I think we need to like, let's maybe cut like the insect house, like just close it or sell it, or maybe even the petting zoo. See, only 169 people have used that, 319 used it last month, 25 used it last month. Our other Thompson Gazelle died. Everything's dying. Everything is dying. Everything is awesome. Upkeep cost 0, so this doesn't cost me any money. Word. What are our finances? What are our finances? Your zoo is running low on money. Yeah. Yeah, that's true. Zoo upkeep. Spending 1,000. Employee wages. We're spending 4,100. That's where it's at. We need to cut our employees there. Zoo donations are at an all-time low. That's a band. All right, where do I view my like employee list? Whoa, we have a heck ton of heck. Huh. All right. Dark Steel Screams that was made in the 90s. It's fantastic. I love the isometric. It's so good. That's why your blanket was warm. Oh, okay. With quick response. Yeah, you're fine. Yeah, I got you. All right, well, we're kind of coming out of it here. Just here talking and stuff. We're coming out of it. I'd like to see the mode in 2 where you have a quest cam. A quest cam. You clean, trash, and feed, and groom, and do the jobs. Would be sunglasses tight. So you mean like you became a like a zookeeper and you had to like click and clean their cages and stuff like that? Okay. Yeah, that'd be like a more hands-on approach, wouldn't it? Something like that. It's definitely just more management and just, well, for Planet Zoo, for those of you that haven't played a Planet series game before, they definitely revolve more around like the creativity of like what you can build. I know I mean, we don't really fully know because it's not the full release yet. We'll see what's different between beta and that, but it does kind of seem with Planet Zoo though, they're trying to make it so you hang out with your animal more and stuff. Which is why I think they're gonna slow down time. They have to slow down time at Planet Zoo because it was way too fast. I couldn't get attached to Bruce Willis at all. Our bear, I couldn't get attached to him at all. He was there and then he died. So yeah, if they really want us to get attached to the animals like they're talking about, then, you know. Cephalus is in the bottom right corner. Fook, yeah, it is. Way to go. I like that. All right, so we have 3 maintenance workers. It's not even in order. Oh, okay, I have them right here. We have 4 maintenance workers, 3 zookeepers, 1 tour guide. Whoa, there's a lot of people following the tour guide. That's awesome. I would say we could get rid of a maintenance worker, but they're kind of not doing that well. So wait, can we put the maintenance worker like you? Hi. Can I put you in a zone? No. No, that's ridiculous. You mean one of the Zoo Tycoon interactive cameras, like walking and being able to brush them and oh yeah, kind of like what Crazy Man Gaming was talking about? Yeah. I gotcha when you're near them. Maybe you don't know what I mean because it was only... I think I understand what you mean. You can interact with them and stuff like your animals. I understand what you're saying. Time to fire a mechanic. Yeah, I think we should get rid of him. Back here. Get out of here. So now we're spending 3,800, I think? 3,900? 3,800. Our 3 zookeepers. I know that you are... 2 of them, yeah, Zookeeper 1 and 2 are handling these areas here. What are you doing? What's your job assignment? Savannah, Exhibit 4 and Exhibit 5. So this guy, or this person goes bam, 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 bam. Just like that. And they say that as they do it too. Bam, 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 bam. All right, I'm gonna turn back on training. There we go. There, because I think we're gonna be. I think we'll be all right. All right. Pawsley, did you know that your wife had a baby? Did you know that, Pawsley? It's a girl. I don't mean to spoil anything, just in case you weren't there or you didn't know. But the internet told me that your wife had a baby. Did you all know that Pawsley's wife had a baby? Look how hard this game was to make a profit in the early stages. Right. Rudy is sick. Our camel is sick. Why is our camel Rudy sick? Oh man. Someone help Rudy. Rudy! You better get, dude, how did you gotta know these things. Someone get this man a pager or something. But you're not kidding, Crazy Man Gaming. It's definitely a little bit difficult to get but once you are on your feet, it's like, okay, we're good, we're on our feet. Yeah, it's definitely starting out, it's a little bit. Yes, go buy some stuff. Do it. Buy everything. It costs 1,800 bucks to upkeep this thing. Heck, we need to expand. I need to buy some animals. Oh man, all of our animals died. This is a very barren Savannah now. Let's buy it. Oh man. So sad. So sad. I can't even afford it. Come on. I want to afford one of these. Come on. Someone buy a cookie. Someone buy a poncho. Let's buy a poncho. Oh god, we had to give money away to buy more ponchos. So come on, someone buy an ice cream cone. Buy another ice cream cone. All right. Animal fertility is now available. What does that mean? Are they gonna bork more? Are they gonna bork better? Y'all, I think our animals can do better. Hello 1999, I know. Don't you miss it though? Looking at the Zoo series. Dude, I had to. It was just on my mind. And, yeah. Oh, I thought you meant this Zoo series. Yeah, the Zoo Design series? That's fun, man. And that's just what I do anyways. With the concept art and Google Maps and all that fun stuff. I just do that stuff anyways, so. Look at all these new people coming in. Come in, spend some money. Get in here, you effers. So yeah, no, that series has been a heck of a lot of fun. They all tripped over the patch of rough terrain, and then they died. Oh man, don't say that. That's so sad. So sad. You think with offline mode for franchise mode, if it will be better for someone like me who loves management? Yeah, I do, Crazy Man, and I'm also excited about that. I'm with you there, because while a lot of my Planet Coaster stuff and even Planet Zoo stuff to an extent was like about kind of creating and you know, yeah, just more on the creative side. At heart, I'm a management player. I started as a management player, you know, when I was doing Roller Coaster Tycoon, theme park, you know, Age of Empires, Empire Earth. I know those are RTSs, but still, I'm just saying, like, you know, the overall, like, I'm a management kind of player, an RTS kind of guy or whatever. So yeah, I'm gonna be doing franchise mode and doing like with money and all that fun stuff. I think it'll be a lot of fun to do that. So I'll have my sandbox park, and then we'll be doing franchise mode with money and animal welfare and trying to make a successful zoo like that. I don't think it'll be as difficult as this though, because I did notice probably about like 3 days into the beta, I figured out how to kind of scam the system. Kind of like with Planet Coaster, if you plop down some, by the way, we're just trying to make money. We're just waiting to see how much money we can make. Kind of like with Planet Coaster, you could build a coaster and theme up the line really nice. Not even really nice. Plop down a bunch of trees and then charge the coaster like 20 bucks, and then you would be a gazillionaire in like a few days or whatever. I kind of found out how to do that in Planet Zoo as well, but it's still fun to take care of like the animals and stuff like that. You're still holding off until after lunch? Launch. I just had lunch. What, to get the game? Yeah, for sure. Oh, see, that's why I wanted to wait. We're super out of money. Hey, the wildebeest gave birth. Hecka yeah, should we just sell it right now or wait? How much money did we get it? 900 or 800 bucks? 800 smackaroos. Yeah, we gotta cut spending somewhere. Research. Yeah, research put us in the hole again. Alright. What is it? Oh, it's doing the rock cave. That's for our lions. So we have lions, so we have a cheetah. I forgot about the cheetah. Heck, sorry, buddy. We gotta put some like trees in there. Heck. After lunch too. It's always a good time after lunch. Look up Amazonia Zoo in I'm gonna mispronounce it. Cromer, Norfolk, UK. New work experience there. It's small, but I think it's good for a Google Maps thing. Yeah. Okay. Here, let me write that down. I got my I have my notes in here of all the zoos I'm looking up. I did put out a poll, by the way. If you all haven't looked at the community tab on the YouTube channel, go ahead and pull that up real quick and do that poll. It's for the next episode of the Google Maps zoo design video. Pick between the top 3 zoos that were mentioned. So it was the Chester Zoo, the San Diego Zoo, and the London Zoo. Those were the top 3 that were picked. So yeah, go thank you, Kate Charnica. Amazonia Zoo. But yes, poll, like a poll. Cool. Can we afford a tree? Let's put down a tree. How's it going, by the way, Kate Charnica? Good to see you there, buddy. I'm just not realizing this is a ginormous habitat for this one dude. Well, you know, it's okay because we like our cheetahs here. There you go. What do you think about that? Is that enough for you? Need some more? Needs more foliage. Come on. You know, well, look at that. Needs more foliage. All right. In Rotterdam, I think it has a really good layout. A lot of European zoos, I noticed, have some interesting, good, more modern layouts and stuff. Or they've been retrofitted as well. Reviews on the Chester Zoo, since I'm there all the time looking at bits of wood. I started looking up the Chester Zoo yesterday because I've heard a lot about it before. The layout is really interesting. It's strange how it's it's not too strange. It almost looked like it was like fields, like separated fields, the way they had everything. Although the the maps isn't is updated only to 2014, and it seems like a lot of the newer stuff has been built in like the later teams, like 2016, 2017, and so on. So I don't know how much I'm missing out on, but there's some really interesting takeaways from the Chester Zoo for sure for an episode. So that zoo, no matter what, will be making an appearance soon. But I think the San Diego Zoo was winning pretty heartedly in the poll the last time I checked it. A lot of people had voted too, which is awesome. The more interaction we get on the channel, the better. So yeah, I can't remember what I was gonna say. Yeah, the more people that comment, like, and all that stuff, it helps out the channel, guys. It does, I swear. What's that tree? I like that tree. Let's do it. Oh, you hate that tree. I hate it too, Mr. Cheetah. I hate it. It's a good mix of a wide path and areas to explore. I like those. I like the main like thoroughfares, but then having like little like dirt paths or mulch paths and stuff like that. Recent map in Discord. Yeah, cool. Do that, please. And if you have any other kind of concept arts or overhead maps, like satellite images maps of the Chester Zoo, then definitely let me know. Oh, that's what I was gonna say. We can learn a lot from the Chester Zoo in comparison to the Brookfield Zoo and the San Diego Zoo. That's what I was gonna say. If that one wins, that's gonna be a really interesting episode. It took me a little bit to get the layout of the San Diego Zoo because it's a bizarre layout. Because it's like in the middle of like a valley and like it's up on like a mountain, like cliffside, not a cliffside, but like a hillside basically. They have escalators going every which way and like tour buses that you have to get on and stuff. It's a bizarre layout. Super cool looking, but yeah, I'm gonna have to like wrap my head around it a little bit to give a fair my fair assessment. And fair takeaway is a better word I should use. Fair takeaway of it. All right, let's get in some trash bins over here. I'm noticing they're throwing litter down. You litter bugs! Did you get out of the... Thank you. From here, Africa, Ali, or Bonham Zoo in Norfolk. They're owned by the same people. Thurkby Hall Wildlife Gardens, another good one. Norfolk is a small country. No, you're fine. If you're not already, Crazy Man Gaming, we have join my Discord group. I know I have a link to it on the first episode of the concept, or actually in all the descriptions of the videos. There should be. Dang, we're running out of money every single time. Every time we run out of money, we gotta cut something. I think I might sell this. Yeah, we're gonna sell that for now. But yeah, join my Discord group. There's a real life zoo section that where everyone's kind of posting their. Oh, we gave birth. Awesome. They're posting like pictures and stuff like that. That'd be awesome to see those. So the zebra gave birth. So let's see what kind it is. Where is it? Where is it? Hello, where is the baby? There is the baby. It's a male. So we're gonna sell that so that we can what? Get in another animal, you think? I know actually we kind of need another maintenance worker. We just sold one off. We kind of need another one. That crooked terrain in the savannah. Don't the zookeepers come in here and clean that up? I remember that you could like go through and do the like that. I thought the zookeepers came in and did that though. Shows what I know. Well, stop getting angry. It's fine. Okay. Is our cheetah happy now? Cheetah! It's well suited. You bet your ass it is. Don't ever think twice about it. Alright, hey cheetah. Do you want a friend? Want a friend? Oh, it's a leopard. A cheetah. Are you a male or a female? Or a male? There you go, cheetah. I mean, you love your habitat, so yeah, there we go, perfect. You two make cheetah babies now. Thank you. Whoa, we're gonna leave out there. Me2's with the safari park that apart from them. We can cover the safari park as well. I didn't really think about that, to be honest with you. I was just kind of thinking of just the San Diego Zoo by itself. But we could do, because we, I'm all for making more videos. The more videos that we make, the better, you know. So that's, yeah, it's good to bring that up. Hey Celia, what's up, buddy? How you doing? Bring me silence. You could try building the compost buildings. Yeah, we haven't researched that yet, because doesn't that just give you money, make some decent money over the years? Yeah, with your poop. Right, we haven't researched that yet though. Or is that one of the buildings that you just get automatically? Oh my gosh, we have. You probably have been looking at that like for a while and been like, bruh, just build it. All right, let's put the pooper down. Oh god, we need another maintenance worker so bad. All right, we're gonna act like this is City Skylines and it's gonna smell, so we're wanna like put it away somewhere. Let's put it over in the corner here. Although I did want to put the wolves over here a little bit. That's okay, we can still put this over here. There we go. Nice. What else? We have a freaking restaurant too. Get the heck out of here. I didn't even notice we had all this stuff in an aviary. I love it. The elephant ride? Yeah, we're not gonna do that. Carousel, we can do that. That's for sure. Yeah, we or else they'll get sick. Okay, is there like a radius around it? Good looking out. Looking out. Income. We've made 50 bucks from it. Heck yeah, we don't even need to have a pathway to it. I love it. Love it. But we're still gonna have a pathway to it. We're still gonna have a pathway to it. There we go. 2019 Chester Map Zoo and Discord. Thank you. Found it on their site. Currently looking through my programs to see if I have some older ones to show how it's expanded. That would be interesting because it looks like it has a frick ton of room to expand. It's just in the middle of a field. Yeah, that'd be really cool. One thing I will miss with Planet Zoo and Zoo Tycoon is how in Zoo Tycoon the maps are tiny compared to Planet Zoo, just more of a challenge with a smaller map. Now you can, there probably will be really tiny maps because there's gonna be a scenario out there, I bet you, in this Planet Zoo. There'll be a scenario out of there, and people will be able to, we'll be able to do custom scenarios for like tiny maps. They can do it in Planet Coaster and stuff too. So yeah, I think we'll be okay in that regard. We keep getting up to like 1800. Now with this new poop area, poopy thingy, we made 200 bucks from that. Get the hell out of here. It's so good. We're gonna take our new profits as long as we get up to 300 with this. I think we will. We probably will. We're gonna hire back a maintenance worker because this place is looking trashy. Or do we hire? Or do we start building a new habitat? Or we could, or we could do this. Or we could do this. Or we could do this. We could bring back like an animal theater. That could be a good idea. That could be kind of neat. Like an aviary. I did like the idea of like a house right here. It fit in really nicely. Japanese garden. Ew. The restaurant's kind of neat, and that would kind of make sense because this is like, well, heck, we're out of money, so it doesn't matter. About a third of the land it owns. A third? Okay, wow. So that's they. How old is this Chester Zoo? Is it relatively on the newer side or been around for a while? Let me get some sleep. R-Base, thanks for hanging out for a little bit there, buddy. Enjoy your warm blanket and cats. We'll see you later in the week, okay? Start my night. You then some NWA power at some NWA power. What is that? What's that? I'm trying to think if I knew what that was, but opened in the 30s, 1930s, by George Mottershead. I have to say it like that, right? Because he's probably English, so it's not Mottershead. It's I've noticed that with like British speak, like you don't say like the word, you stop yourself from saying the word, and then that's how you speak better. Yes, English. We're gonna put the restaurant down. I think it's a good idea. It'll make us some money too. Without bars, Oh, you know what? I think for the Brookfield Zoo, because it was founded, I believe, in like the 40s, if not the 20s. I mean, originally it was founded in like the 1800s as like a park, but I feel like maybe the Brookfield Zoo designers, I feel like I read this on their Wikipedia, took inspiration from that guy, or maybe like someone that was associated with him. A bug frickin' bit me, man. It did too. I have a little bite mark. That hurt. Where the hell did it go? I hope I killed it. But yeah, I think he took an inspiration, or the Brookfield Zoo took inspiration for their indoor primate houses and stuff like that, that were also like ahead of the curve for houses and stuff in the 80s and 90s. Is wrestling? Yeah, okay. I thought it was wrestling. I thought I heard of it. I didn't know it was only on YouTube though. That's interesting. Blam! How much? $12. Cool. Let's get some. Let's get a pathway into here. What's that? Cobblestone. That's fancy. Oh, see, people were just like begging to want to come into a restaurant there. They're like, please, can we spend $12 on a moose burger or something? There we go. That's the turning point right there, folks. That's our turning point. Probably not. Probably not. Yeah, it really got me there. Really got me there. All right, so after this, I think we can, yeah, look into. Let's make us a good amount of money. We can look into doing another habitat. We'll do it right over this way, another smallish one. Let's see what animal we should do. I want to do another North American style animal. So we can do a wolf, I guess like a black bear or a grizzly bear. What else? Technically we could do like American bighorn. I think ibex? No, they're from, okay. Is an amazing zoo though, and the best in the north of the UK. Yeah. Never been to London Zoo, so might be that might be the best. I mean, from my looking at overhead pictures of both those zoos, the Chester Zoo looks a lot bigger, but the London Zoo, excuse me, looks to, I don't know, bear, the black bear. I think that could be fun. Ooh, an anteater. We're gonna have a really lush jungle section. Yeah, the black bear. Black bears prefer to live alone or in small groups. Grizzly bears like to sleep in rock caves. That's funny. That's a typo. Cool. So let's do that. Left of both Planet games got the same same shop with the DLC. Do you think we're going to get, or would like to? I would like to have a marine type one so we could make things like SeaWorld. Yeah. I think like that would be cool. An Australian pack would be cool. It kind of depends what comes with full release, to be honest, but just doing different parts of the world that aren't fully covered in full release would be really cool. I mean, I got a sub. Thanks for the sub. Appreciate you. But yeah, marine style one, a marine life one would be cool. An aquatic one would be cool. I'm not really into like dinosaurs or anything like that. I don't really care about like dinosaur packs or anything like that. Yeah, I could see him doing like animal packs, maybe like with 3 to 5 animals or something like that you could buy, and then like bigger packs with like actual full-on habitats and areas and stuff like that. So, all right, let's see what we can afford here. That's kind of the main thing. That's 180. That's 200. Concrete chain fence. No, I don't want that. What's that? Purchase a rock. Exhibit strong fence, but may be broken through by strong animals. Maybe it fit our theme with the bears, though. Let's do that. Music's chill AF. You've been to London Zoo in Europe and it's not as good, but it does have some great new enclosures. That's what I was looking for. It looks like it's going under like a rehab almost. It kind of looks like it's an old zoo. I mean, it's definitely an old zoo. And it's going under like a rehabilitation almost. Oh heck, we can't afford it. Okay. Is there just like a glass? Probably not. This is probably what I'd be looking for. Miscounted. You'll definitely go to London Zoo, but I'm lucky Chester Zoo is your local zoo. Well, yeah, again, if it's, you know, really looking like it's going through excuse me, bit of a rehab or whatever you want to call it there. Has some great theming. It's like a theme park. The London Zoo does. Nice, nice. There's a photo and video online of thylacine in London Zoo. They're extinct now? Really? Oh, that sucks. Is it like the last one or something? You fed the lions in the London Zoo? How do they have you do that? Is like through the ouch. Do like the habitat wall where you have like a rope and stuff you have to pull or something like that? It's a pretty big exhibit here, just realizing. And you fed the leopards? Everyone's feeding all these crazy animals. Kind of works. Get bit by an anaconda at the Amazonian Zoo. You opened the wrong door. Whoops. Sucks. Manor Zoo is meh. It's better for small animals and monkeys, not the big cats. I love monkeys. Need a bigger enclosure. I feel bad for them when I see them there. Yeah. It was in their old habitat. They had a little cage. You went in to feed them. And you only inches away. Oh my god, what kind of cage? Was like holes, like the holes cage was like glass kind of thing. Mrs. K won a prize to visit and they treated us to the lion feeding. Congrats, you won. We're gonna feed you to lions. Okay, cool. Smell something smelly. That smelly smell that smells that smells. Hi, because. What's up, buddy? Ooh, that smell. Well, actually bring it down this way. Let's do it like this. The smell that surrounds you. Oh, I don't like it doing that. I don't like it doing that. Ah, that's why I did that. Okay. No, 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 no. Okay. How's the puppy? Puppy's good. Puppy is not in here. I thought he was behind me, but that's actually my kitties. Want to see kitties? Anyone like kitties? Alright, so there we have... Oh, it's hard to see because of the lighting, but Mr. Brucey Bruce, our black cat. And ball full of cuteness, Miss Sasha Bean. Having a little Sasha Bean dream. There we go. My puppy is doing awesome. Like that chin shot though? The chin shot. Best. Cool. I almost looked a photo in Discord if I can find it. Yes! They're animal prisons no matter how dressed up they are. Yeah. For some of them, it's either that or they become extinct. So, some may call them prisons. I call them whatever. I call them zoos. Because I've seen a real prison, and they don't try and take care of you as much as a zoo does. They're animals. So modern zoos, I would not call them a prison at all, actually. Not one bit. Cats are quite cute. Yeah, they try, don't they? They try. First time you've seen Sasha? Really? From pics on Facebook? Yeah, she's normally not around, is she? And we had to catch her while she was sleeping. We did have to catch her while she was sleeping, so... Well, not that. Let's do, like, yeah, the stone. Maybe the tall one would be nice. Yeah, then it's like a little area. Something. Promises Gazelle 4 died! Stop it. Wow, that's a really expensive theming I'm doing here, but that's okay. That's worth it. It's worth it. It's worth it. I'm banned from extinction. I respect them a lot more. Just modern zoos have come a long way. Like, if you want to say like past zoos, for sure. Like, that stuff sucked. But modern zoos, I think that we've come a long way, personally. Not saying it's perfect, but I just think we've come a long way. Should we try and get a male and a female? I mean, right? Have to. Oh, she can't now. She heard something out your window, so see ya. There it goes. My window, miss. How you doing there, buddy boy? Not good to see you there. I'll read those comments in just like 2 seconds. I just realized I don't want our black bears to be there. Pause it, because we actually do have money. You watched Geekism's video today. Oh, which one? The one where he redoes Goodwood House? That's a cool idea for a series. I like that. I'm excited for more of those. It goes into the history, and we're a lot better than 100 years ago. Sure, we're a constant evolving species. We're imprisoned, small cage, it's just concrete base with a bed. Right. Mm-hmm. The work zoos do with small animals, people don't even realize. Mm-hmm. A lot. I've been learning a lot myself just from comments on my videos and like John T's videos and S-stands and stuff like that from zookeepers. I've been getting a really interesting insight into habitats and exhibits and how it seems like, obviously, you want to try and give a really good habitat to your animals, but it seems like the main area of an animal's enrichment comes from those people, those zookeepers and helpers and people who have, dedicated their lives to helping those animals, whether it's 2 o'clock in the morning or 2 o'clock in the afternoon, like, it's like an actual, like a doctor or something like that. But yeah, it just seems like it really comes down to the enrichment that those people provide for the animals, more so than like the cool looking exhibits that we see are more for us to feel good about it, rather than like the animals are really even giving a crap. Really. So you arranged your room today, and now Ozzy's running around being a psycho trying to find a place. Yes, our cats do that too. You mean no disrespect at all towards zoos? For sure. We love zoos and everything they do. However, it's never perfect. No, there aren't any perfect answers. Humans suck. Well, it's just humans. I think zoos have kind of transitioned in from look at these animals, aren't they neat, to crap, we're destroying animals, we should save them, and also, aren't they neat? So I think it's just a transitionary period, the last 20 to 30 years with zoos, big time. And I think they're trying their best, and I understand where you're coming from, Pippi. I know what you mean. I didn't think you were malice in it. So the default video, yeah, the one he did today. Yep, it's a really cool idea for a series. Because I could talk for days and everyone would get bored. You're fine. There was a really big discussion going on in the Planet Zoo. I say interesting, I'm gonna put that in quotes because some people were just trying to be rees and be offended, just to be and be offended. But there was a talk today, someone brought up SeaWorld in the Planet Zoo Discord, and that went about as well as you suspect it would. And it's like some people are trying to you get this in every kind of, oh shit, you get this in every topic. Some people are actually trying to have a discussion, and then other people go in there like, well, I saw this documentary, so now I know everything, and if you say anything that goes against what I think, you're wrong. And I'm like, oh well, you're obviously fun to have at parties. That's not verbatim what people said, but there are a few comments from people that literally said like, I saw this documentary, I know the facts. And it's like, no, that's not how a discussion, you can't just declare yourself master of the universe and then just declare that that's a conversation. That's not a conversation. Sad that the wild is worse than zoos nowadays. Yeah, thanks to humans, right? Yeah, we, you know, we do things. Is this the kind of trees you like? You like this tree? Frick yeah, you do. The otters at Amazonia would follow me when I was cleaning the glass and would try to get the sponge. That's awesome. About animals, just that you're passionate about a subject doesn't mean you should restrain from talking. No. As long as you're not being a dillhole about it. Then it's for full release, because the last time I was at a zoo was forever ago, so going into the beta I had no idea what to do. It looks like St. Louis, or from what I've researched, St. Louis has an amazing zoo program. I need this rock cave. Yeah, so you should totally go. I do the best impressions. You know me. I like how SeaWorld handled things. Hey, come to our park, come backstage, see what we do. They did like really open it, and I mean, they definitely owned up to their shit, I would say. You know what I mean? They definitely, I will give them that. They're learning, they're evolving. Just like we all do as a species. Oh my god, I love that people are actually coming up here and getting a view of this like that. That's making my little heart flutter. But no, yeah, I agree. It's, you know, it's a weird situation when you break it down, isn't it? It's a weird kind of little situation there. There, don't look in here. Nothing to see behind the glass. We're gonna hire another zookeeper and another one of you. A good beat there. Blackfish is full of lies and fired employees that are mad they got fired. See, I read a lot about that documentary, and it's not just from like Reddit. Like I actually looked into it before watching. Actually, I still haven't watched it, and I really don't plan on it because of that reason. There's a bunch of information that is just straight up bullcrap. A lot of not proven information. Now, it's not discrediting the whole thing. They did do some work, but a lot of it was like a bad hit piece, man. But people don't, you know, people won't look into that kind of stuff. They don't care. That was portrayed to be true in said documentary. You are no messy universe. You are, yeah. with people's opinions. Yeah, that's the K-Tronically, that's the best way to put cancel culture today. No opinion or no anything is ever black and white. But context be damned. You know? People just really want to just be upset, man. People just really gotta be upset. Life's too short. Y'all just calm down. So everyone just calm down. It's okay. Promise. We got the rock cave. See, we have a rock cave. Does anything else matter at all? Literally, does anything else matter at all right now? No. We have a rock cave. That's the only thing that matters in life. Rock cave. Forever. Large animals like orcas and dolphins should be treated with the same respect as people do with lions. We've come a long way from forcing lions to entertain us, so we should do the same with the marine animals. Yeah, and it seems like they are, aren't they? Like they're not doing the orca shows or anything like that anymore, and aren't they like releasing all their orcas that they can't? Or no, they're like stopping with the breeding program or something. Which I don't understand that one, because aren't orcas in danger? But they were forced to stop the breeding program. Wouldn't people who are like in favor of orcas want them to continue the breeding program? I don't know. It's such a touchy subject, and I know someone is, or multiple people are just like reeing their pants off right now. But people, hey, that's a poop place. You don't want to. That's a poop poop. That's a poop poop. Where can I buy a souvenir? Right here. Right there is a good spot to buy a souvenir. We just this isn't like, you know. Can y'all just nod and just we'll pretend that you didn't? There we go. I know our black bear still needs some more stuff. I know he still needs some more stuff. We were saving up money for it though. There we go. Oh boy. I'm too old to be angry all the time. Complains about Planet Coaster graphics. Retweets this thing. Hey, there's a difference between looking dated and being timeless. All right. Planet Coaster doesn't look terrible, but from going from Planet Zoo to Planet Coaster, you're just like, whoa. It's dated. Not enough deciduous. I hear you. I hear you. But is an orca show entertainment or is it enrichment for the orca? I don't know personally. I mean, I'm not knowledgeable enough to really know. From what I've heard from other animals, though, it's enrichment. As long as you're not. Oh no. What is it? As long as you're not forcing the animal, right? I feel like I just saw that on the zoo or like the Irwin's Crikey Mate show. Whereas if you're not forcing the animal to do it and you're just like in your treat enabling, because we did positive reinforcement training with Murphy and we've been doing it with like treats and stuff like that, and it's worked wonders. But it's not like we're forcing him, you know. It's like, hey, you did a good thing, here's a treat. You know. So I don't know. I'm talking out my ass at that point. You can say that with dogs too, and stop training them to entertain us. Do people? Yeah. So entertain or work, I guess. Yeah, again, we don't train our dog to entertain us. We do, like, when we're training our dog, it's for like, okay, we want you to sit, we want you to heel. So I see where you're coming from. If you look at sea life centers in the UK, they do a great job, and they don't need orcas and dolphins. They don't need orcas and dolphins, and still great places to go and help endangered sea life. And some very cute penguins. Well, that's like SeaWorld, right? Pivoted from really focusing on like the animals and stuff, and pivoted towards their rides and stuff, right? So they've been introducing more roller coasters and attractions and stuff like that, and not really pushing the other stuff as much. More rocks? Okay, yeah, for sure, bro. Cool, do you like this one too? Nope. So I'm gonna put this one right there. Nice. Too many rocks? Too many rocks. Okay. So that makes our bears happy. Y'all are happy. Needs more foliage. Oh, yeah, foliage. Hi, duh. Dogs and cats entertain us, and all they need to do is sit around. I guess it depends on your definition of entertainment. Our CCW is different to be vague. Yeah, a little bit. Our giraffe is sick. I'm gonna pause real quick. We're making money and stuff. I just need to get this up better. Use positive reinforcement in all zoos. Yeah. Mm-hmm. And Blackpool is amazing though to learn about small, medium-sized aquatic animals. Do a Penn Island equivalent. Ooh, that could be fun though. That could be fun. Y'all like this one? Yeah, you did. Okay, good. Oh no, we're way out of money again. Well, Heckaroony Smith. Too much trampled terrain? We'll stop trampling your terrain, you dingus. And playing zoo filled with all the, yeah, there you go. It goes back and forth between having too much terrain and too much trampled terrain and not enough foliage. It's interesting. Alright, so now that I have more people up here, we should have more people in the zoo. Well, look at it! We have like a bunch of little babies. Let's sell one of these things. Are they both females? They are both females. We're gonna sell one. Bye! What about up here? What's going on? We have our zebras, we have our older wildebeest. Black for one that's not happy. Yeah, I know. That's okay. Rudy! How's Rudy doing? Heckin' good. Large chimpanzee bars. Oh, right on. It's like the best news I've heard all day. I think those are the wrong way. No, they're the right way. Good. Oh God, Domez, what'd you do? You said a bad word. I gotta control. Gotta alt tab over there real quick. You said the penis word. You can't say penis. Okay. Did that to be a collab? What for the zoo? The zoo? Penn Island Zoo? Needs more foliage. Well, heck, would you make up your mind if you have enough foliage or not, Bill Bro? Oh, does it like any of these deciduous trees? Yeah, it does. That's cool. I'm gonna get rid of this one now. I mean, guests aren't gonna be able to see the bear, but you know, at least it'll be happy with all this foliage. There's like a bush I can put down instead. Pine bush. Man, it still wants more! Holy hell, dude, I'm not giving any more. You're not gonna be able to see you. Too much trampled terrain. Yeah, okay, good. That's good enough. Heck. Penis shaped, yes. The zoo looks amazing, better than what I think is crazy, man. I appreciate that. I love this game. It's so fun building in these old isometric games, isn't it? Building just goes so much quicker. You know? It's a lot of fun. Save up some money here. Next week I might go to the Cleveland Metro Park Zoo to get back into it. Hey! There you go. You said the P word. Time for the ban. That's right. Isn't penis a scientific word though? Yeah, it is. It is. It is the actual atomic word. It's the actual word. So, but it made someone feel icky in their feel space. So we can't do that. I think we're gonna put our next habitat. We're gonna set up a little backstage thing here that's totally unnecessary, but I still want to do it. So let's do that real quick. Up a little backstage area for our restaurant. There we go. We're running out of money. Well, this is important. This is like the most important thing that we've built. So I have to build concrete. However much this is, it's totally worth it. Boom. Backstage. I'm not even gonna show them, Domez, so if they're not showing up, they're gonna be hidden forever. Because YouTube is getting too PG. Yeah, for like the last 5 years. Ever since they sold to Google, they've had to get PG. Some people haven't seen the Austin Powers trilogy, and it shows. Oh, it's so sad, isn't it? So, what a good trilogy. Americans be weird? The world's gone weird, man. I will just read. So you can say dick and cocks, but not scientific word for it? Yep. This was the shit when I was a kid. Hell yeah, Rebecca. Rebecca bitch. See, how do you even have I like that you can have your name as Rebecca bitch, but it holds your title. This was the shit when I was a kid. It holds that for review. YouTube, you crazy. You crazy. But how's it going, Rebecca? It's hard to watch it now though, graphics wise. It's aged like a fine beer. It's aged like a fine beer. You know, but I still have a special place in my heart for these old isometric games like this, Roller Coaster Tycoon, the old SimCity, 2000, stuff like that. Fuck yeah. What was once meant to be just a dumb toilet humor now offends an entire... Yeah, well, there you go. So, jeez. You know there was only 2? You mean you never got to see Goldmember? Crazy Man Gaming. You never got to see Goldmember? Man. Gotta see Goldmember, it's the best one. It has the return of Fat Bastard, even though he's not so fat, and so good. So good. It might be my second favorite one. Might be. I like gold! There's a lot of Dutch jokes in it, so if you're a person of Dutch origin, and you get offended, don't watch it because they make a lot of Dutch jokes. But if you like to make fun of Dutch people, then definitely watch it. Been watching you for a while. Nice to see a face match the voice. Hey, welcome! Hello! Yes, I've been kind of switching up streaming services, but I normally would stream on Twitch and then Mixer. We just got partnered on YouTube finally. So thank you for watching in the past and everything. I appreciate you. We just got partnered on YouTube, so I just figured, why go... Let's hang here. So yeah, welcome to the stream. And my face looking like a this. So the original ones are much better. The newer 2 not so good. The newer 2? There's only 3 of them, and the second one came out like a year or 2 after the first one, I think. But the third one, it was definitely different. It was definitely different. Or was there a 4th one? Maybe there was a 4th one I didn't even know. But the first one, like Austin Powers, International Man of Mystery, and then Austin Powers, The Spy Who Shagged Me. Oh, so good. So good. I know I'm not doing much on the game, but this is kind of one of those games where if you haven't played like this before, you gotta kind of let it run and make money and stuff. So it's good to you can just chit chat and drink Coca-Cola, the original taste. Pay up, Coke. They're not gonna pay me. My ginger love. That's for sure. Thanks, Grandpa. You betcha. That's right, $3. That's right. I'm gonna buy myself a Coke. Yo, this song is funky and great as heck. Zookeepers, why are all my zookeepers having trouble getting places? I don't even question it because like it doesn't. Jimmy, don't go to the poop. Jimmy Lipper, knock it off. You have a premium, so you might earn about 4. I am, yes. Everyone that has premium, you're appreciated awesomely. I do earn money for my YouTube premium views, so. Oh wait, this is where since I'm partnered, I'll switch over to what is it? Is it F3? I think it's F3. Have you all heard of YouTube Premium? Well, let me tell you about it. It's you pay money and then you feel good about yourself. YouTube Premium. I'd be a really good spokesperson for something. Done with the Planet Zoo videos? Yes, I ran out. I didn't plan. I got so excited. And I ran out of videos, so I threw them all out. But we're gonna still do the we're gonna still have the zoo design videos coming out, and I think those people seem to be enjoying those, where we take a look at like concept art and different maps and stuff like that. We'll keep doing that for sure. People seem to really enjoy that. That's one of the best series I've put out, analytics wise. So, which is awesome because up until full release, a lot of us I was talking to a few content creators today in a group message, and one of them was saying I was saying I can't wait for full release, and they were like, me neither, because I'm scraping the barrel of what to put out for a month. And so yeah, we're all really excited for full release, definitely. Right there are only 3. Oh yeah. G Fuel sponsorship, yes. Not quite yet. The monkeys in the background made you laugh so hard. Sorry, I totally missed it. Interesting Mystery 97, Spy Who Shagged Me 99, Gold Member 02. So they was actually kind of consistent with the releases. I thought Gold Member was like way afterwards for some reason. It's worth it for the no mid rolls, I bet. But to be honest, except when I'm watching on my Xbox out in the living room, when I'm watching here, and I should probably delete this because now that I'm a partner, I haven't watched an ad in years because my ad block. Love Guru is another good Mike Myers movie with similar humor. Yeah, I didn't like that one. I was not a fan of that one. That was so long ago? Yeah, it was almost 20 years ago. You gotta go for a big grab dinner. Hey, enjoy dinner, because have a good dinner, Dieter. Guten Appetit. Oh, yeah. I can't see my whole screen. It's to explain it like, or I don't know how to explain it, but to do the like Zoo Tycoon to make it like work, to like show you all, it had to go into like a weird frickin' perspective, and what am I getting at? Oh, so yeah, I can't like move my mouse over to my second screen like normal. Like this is me trying to move my mouse over to second screen, and there's no like border or anything like that mode. And I don't want to play in windowed mode because it's in a dumb perspective. So yeah, I can't see what you all are seeing on the screen there. Hold on. That was my really drawn out way of saying I can't see my screen there, and that's what happens when I alt tab and I come over here to click show. There we go. It was not a very good movie. It was like during that time of like when Adam Sandler and Mike Myers like tried to be like mid 90s funny in a mid 2000s world, and it just didn't work for me. Oh hey, my wife is leaving for work. I'll be right back. I gotta say bye to her. Okay. We good? Is it back? Do I have audio? Yep. Okay, we're good. And action. Has San Diego won the vote yet? The last time I looked was a few hours ago, but it was sitting pretty heavily with 50% of the vote. So we'll see. I'll check right after the stream there. So cool. I do. Recently married, about like a month and a half ago. So just missed it. All right. So this. Oops. So the zookeepers don't take care of the trampled ground, eh? Kind of funny. But if I do it, then all right. Blackbird 2, they porked. Yes. Hip hip hooray for porking. Is that good? No, it was pissed about that. Shit. Got him. Okay, we're okay. And then in here. By that much. I think San Diego is gonna win it though, and I'm really excited to look at San Diego. Truth be told, I've never been there personally, but I was mentioning earlier that I think it's a really cool zoo because it has like a bunch of elevation shifts and stuff like that, and frickin' oops, there we go, escalators and. Yeah, it just looks crazy, man. Plus, isn't San Diego Zoo like, isn't it the biggest zoo in the world? Or is it just considered like the best, or like one of the best zoos in the world? I thought it was maybe the biggest zoo in the world. Either way, it's gonna be a fun episode. I'm gonna start on that tonight too. So, how much money? Oh, we're sitting at $11,000. I don't know when we got $11,000, but we got $11,000, so. Fucking sick, bruh. Let's keep this party going. We don't need to keep this party started because that would be a redundant sentence. So we're gonna do our wolf habitat next. Oh. You won't go and revote for my other YouTube accounts to throw the poll. Yeah, because you just do Chester, the zoo over and over again, wouldn't you? Any named animals in this zoo I'll miss when they go. Rip Blues. Oh, we have Goose the Moose. We have Goose the Moose and Rudy the Camel. But other than that, no, there shouldn't be. So let's go and pause it real quick. I'm seeing a lot of people switching to YouTube for streaming, and it makes me happy. Twitch is just so annoying in a lot of ways. Yeah, agreed. I switched from them a few months back when one of their controversies was going on, and I was just like, you know what? No. Oh god, there's a puppy. Yeah, I just wasn't into it. Just everything that they were doing and were about, basically. And they just weren't consistent in their own values as a company that they want to instill in their streamers. So it's like, if you can't even do what you set out to do, how am I gonna take you seriously and like hang out? Oh, Murphy's gonna maybe end the stream earlier than I'd like to. So if you see here, we're doing multi-use things, right? Actually, we're just gonna finish this out all the way over here. We're gonna finish it out. No, Murphy, don't. There we go. I'm seeing San Diego, to be honest. I know Chester well enough. Yeah, right. It is a puppy, the little itty bitty puppy. It kind of went, yeah, it kind of changed a little bit there. And yeah, I mean, I don't know. It's not for me. Oh, and Mixer is great. That's what I was gonna get at. Mixer was great. I enjoy Mixer. However, we got partnered on YouTube, so it just doesn't make sense to spread the audience around, right? I don't want to spread the audience. Oh my goodness gracious, great balls of Murphy. 1 minute. 1 minute. Murphy. Hour 40 minutes, and then we'll have all night to play, and we're gonna go on a big walk. It's gonna be the best time. Let's just another day. 30 minutes, 40 minutes. I promise there, brother Rooski. I promise you're doing so good. Okay, well maybe I'll let you out first. But first I have to show everyone. Hold on, here we go. I know, buddy. Can we all see? Oh, not really. Not really. Okay. Okay. That's how we say hi. So there we go. There he is. And we gotta go take him outside. So hold on. Y'all hang out real quick. We're gonna F2. Be right back. Okay. Y'all still here? Did everyone leave? I think he's okay now. Let me catch up with chat. Here. Hold on. Fixed it. Okay. Free the puppy! Yes! He's caged. Habitat 0%. Oh no. He's fine. He loves his habitat. He's barely there. Mixer sounds too much like Grinder to you. Watch out for protesters. Yeah, I know. I gotta get rid of the protesters. We gotta get some more coniferous flooring on his habitat or something. Hopefully he'll be okay. He should be okay for a while. He just wants to say tinkle there. Is this Zoo Tycoon music? No. Nope. The only Zoo Tycoon music that there is just the beginning intro music, and then there's like no music after that. It just stops playing music. So I gotta go watch the end. Hope you, hey, Crazy Man Gaming, as you watch this back later, have a good one. Hope you're having a good one now as you're watching it back later. So thanks much. But yeah, let's go ahead and get playing here some more for a little bit more. See what we can do. So we need to let it play out because I just realized we're out of money. We got our habitat built up and now we're out of money. Perfect. So we're gonna put wolves here. Definitely gonna put some wolves. Yep. How much are they? How much are the timber wolves? There they are. Gray wolves, not timber wolves. So. Did I move your Twitch? Copy and pasted the link and didn't find everything. Yeah, Twitch still has a link? That's old. Yes, that's old. I did not update my Twitch. But no worries, because I don't stream over there at all. So I should probably just delete the account.
Excuse us, ladies and gentlemen.
Gray wolves live in large groups called packs. That's true. Gray wolves need a large amount of room in captivity. Good boy, Murphy. Lay down, buddy. Your profile for YouTube in the about section. Yeah, in the description. Oh, and the about bow. Oh, I forgot about that. Yeah, I need to update that then too. I need to take Twitch off of all this stuff. I'm trying to just have it. Should just be Discord and Twitter. Yeah, that's all I want now. So yeah, I need to go back through and update all that stuff. I also need to update my profile picture. Because that was a Twitch thing with the Pop-Tart eating and stuff like that. That was a big old Twitch thing, so... Well, you are welcome. Well, no one... I'm just kidding. Thanks, Rebecca. Appreciate you. See, that's why we need an awesome community. Oh, hey, I'm playing the game and y'all aren't even seeing the game. Look at that. I'm so good at this. I should make a YouTube account. I should stream. But yeah, anyways, if we didn't have a good community letting us know where we're messing up, then what would we be? What would we be? So what, they probably have like an alpha male and then a bunch of females. This is still a really cool bear habitat, but it also sucks because you really can't see down into it at all. But it's kind of neat. I'd say, I mean, the habitat is like pretty well spot on what you want it to be. More foliage. I think we're getting to that point where we're gonna have to hire another keeper and stuff. You know what we will hire another one of? Another tour guide. It costs $500. It's kind of a lot of money. So what are your plans now? Like right now? Like right now, this very instant? Or like for the game, or like such a big question. Alright, so save a few more, but I want to get one more wolf. One more wolf would be nice. Oh, well. Oh, until release. Yeah, well that's a better way to put that. So we're gonna keep doing the zoo design series because I could milk that fucker out for a while. Because I'm doing, you know, we're doing all the Google Maps, so I can do a bunch of zoos to look at. I might have a few more ideas for concept arts that I want to look over. We might start a playthrough of this on YouTube, of Zoo Tycoon on YouTube, so it's a little bit different than the streaming. Because, you know, streaming, we're kind of sitting here and I'm chit-chatting with y'all and we're hanging out and stuff like that because I like to be able to do that. Actually, we can let it play. I also downloaded The Movies, which is a game from back in the way early 2000s as well. That was, oh my gosh, if they need to remake any game, they need to remake that game. Such a fun game. We might do a playthrough of that. Lay down, Murphy. Come on, but I know, you're doing so good though. Just lay down, buddy. Lay down. Yeah, just lay down. We're having a stare off. Lay down, buddy. Okay. Well, if I let you out, you can't be jumping around. I don't mind you being out. You normally are out. You're probably just wondering why I'm talking to myself. Yeah, hi buddy, I know. I know. It makes me so nervous because who knows what you're gonna go do. And there he goes. And there he goes. Alright, what do our wolves need? I just realized that our wolves are probably hating life. Some more of the same type of animal? Oh yeah, word. Totes word sauce. What about that? Is that enough? Next area, the tundra. Oh yeah, that could be fun. Have some snowcats. Did you get your bear? I see it. I know, duder. You got him. Yeah, you got it. I know, you got your bear. Well, now that you're out of the crate, sure, let's do this whole thing. Say hi. Say hi. I know. I know. Okay. With the jump arounds. Now y'all understand why I don't get anything done. How could you get anything done with that thing? Needs more foliage. It's not big enough for the number of animals it currently holds. Why? Good boy, Murphy. I'd like to have a mate. Did I sell the only male? I have one male there. Oh, okay. So we'll put in another male. It's not gonna be big enough, but we'll increase the habitat size. Habitat size. Yeah, we could just go all the way up. I mean, like, why wouldn't we, right? Oh, what did we just research? I don't even know.
Ladies and gentlemen.
Pause it. The long dark next part is coming soon. Yes, it is. Yes, it is. Wolves are matriarchal. Oh, okay. Beyond Murphy TV, you'd sub. Where'd you go, Sasha? Murphy! So quiet. There he is. He's in the kitchen. Release Mr. Preppers into the wild, receive some conservation. Can we buy another one now? Do we have enough? Movies was one of your faves. Isn't it such a good game? I love it. I booted it up the other day, playing it, and it was so much fun. Alright, more foliage. More foliage. Ooh, do they want the rock cave? Is that... Yeah. How many can I hold? Doesn't tell me. Do they need another one? Not enough shelters, yeah. Oh heck, we're out of money again. Customer review, distant posture. Yeah, that is what happened. While we're saving up money, I'm literally gonna be like 2 seconds. I just need to see what he's doing. Well, that's good. Good boy. You're just sitting and not doing anything bad, and everybody's happy. Everybody's happy, happy, happy. Yeah. Oh gosh, well, it's been fun. Need to inhale some food. Do it. I'm joining your Discord though and leave my YouTube going. Can hopefully catch you. Yeah, cool. Hey Rebecca, thanks so much. And yeah, come on over to the Discord. I announce when we go live, and whenever I upload a video and all that stuff, I ping y'all on there. So yeah. Thanks so much, bud. That's okay. Yeah, we're gonna probably wrap up here in the next half hour, 20 minutes ish. Regardless, because I do want to get started on that the San Diego zoo video tonight. So I'm gonna work on that tonight and get that uploaded probably by tomorrow. That'll be our one for tomorrow. Either that or another concept art video. This is such a little thing, but I love that the tour guides, they actually follow like tour guides around. That's such a good thing. It has 275 Rottweilers, and they think they're lap dogs. Yeah, I think that's how Murphy is gonna be as well. And startling. Not enough shelter. Oh yeah, shelter. He's so fat. Or he's gonna be so fat, I should say. Okay, coniferous and deciduous. Deciduous. What are you doing, Murph? Oh, we can't even afford that yet. It costs $4,000 to do all that. Holy hell. I got so much money every single time we do that. Dang. Oh, good, he's laying down. That's exactly what I need him to do. Perfect. See, he's so funny. He goes from inside of his crate where he's laying down and he has a whole bunch of toys, but he just wants to go and lay down next to his crate on the outside of it where there's no toys. He's funny. He's a funny dog, I tell ya. Why can't I afford that? I can afford it. I think instead of that, I'm gonna try and get people over here first, and then we can worry about doing it up better or making it look a little bit better. I just want to get people over here looking at it. There we go. And then maybe get some like vending machines or something over here. Where's the other? We only have like one restroom. We have like a restroom there and maybe one down here. Let's get one more restroom. That cat's beating you up there, buddy. Hey, we got a primate house. That's cool. Oh, maybe we can put a primate house over here, and then the primate house can kind of transition us into like a tropical area. Much different / better do you hope or expect full release to be? Drastically. Pretty drastic as far as like leave it there, buddy. We don't need to get those. Because I think all the bugs are going to be for the most part smashed. So yeah, as far as like bugs and stuff, I don't think we'll really see many problems there. Balancing issues there might be, I guess, like a few with like how much a feeder feeds or a zookeeper will feed, but as far as gameplay goes, I don't think you'll see any drastic like additions that we don't know about except for the offline franchise mode. And then yeah, it's about all the new animals that we'll have in there that we pretty much know are coming, but yeah, no, but I don't think there'll be anything drastically new. You mean with the data? Data mines on the beta animals look better. Yeah, the animals will probably look better. maybe slow the game down. No, it'll probably be better. It'll probably be better because they'll be able to optimize it more. But yeah, no, the version that we have is that we got, the beta that we got was really old. Not really old, but it was an older version for sure, at least a month or two old, because it was the same version that they let them do play at Gamescom, pretty sure. So that was at least a month or two old right there. So you know, I think everything will look better, but I think it's also gonna be way more optimized. The building system or the grid system will be intact. I think a lot of the balancing issues with your zookeepers will be kind of balanced out a little bit better, and yeah, I think it'll be good. Of course, you know, just like any game, there'll probably be a few patches that roll out and stuff the first few days, here and there, to balance things out. Most popular zoo for reaching 500th guest milestone. What? That's nuts. Yeah, I think that'll be addressed too, Pippi, for sure. And need to live longer. Yeah, because they can't like harp on us wanting to be involved with our animals and have them die in like 10 minutes. Red pandas too. Red pandas. 2 words. Yes. Yes. I know, buddy. I know. Dang it! Why does it keep doing that? Did you just build the thing? It's not $2,000. So. Oh shoot! I got rid of the water. I didn't mean to. Excuse me. Not enough coniferous. Okay. Game speed is too fast, so you should take like an hour, I'd say. They all breed like rabbits. Someone did it. How long did a day last? Was it like 20 minutes, literally? Something really low like that. But I mean, yeah, I didn't have any incentive to really, reptile house, that's neat. I didn't really have any incentive to go and hang out with my animals. I would usually find out that they had died after like I was gonna record a YouTube video, basically. Was Bruce Willis and his infinite wisdom, exactly? Yeah. Tanuki, I'm just hoping is a free update later on. I showed my wife that this morning, and she thought it was the most adorable thing in the world. And I have to agree. Oh, I hate how it does it. It's so stupid. Hey, what are you chewing on? You chewing on a napkin? I'm gonna come get that napkin real quick from you. Can I have it? Yeah, I'm gonna take that from you. Come here. You can chew on anything else. Oh, come here. Yeah. Oh, that's such a boy. Drop it. Oh, and I. Drop it. Drop it. Yuck. Thank you. Thank you so much. I mean, look at all these toys you can chew on instead, though. Yeah, let's just chew on all those toys. Look, you got a bone, and there's a squeak. I know, and there's a squeaky toy right there. You don't even have to chew on the napkin. You don't even have to. And look at that bone. I bet you like the bone a lot more. Just saying. I don't know much in this world, but I do know that you'd like that more. If the years were 1 hour long, nobles would live for 11 hours, giving you time to interact with them, or they were 2 hours. Yeah. Neil's dead when you got. Yeah. Yep. I'm sure they're gonna address that. No problem. I mean, a lot of people put in bug reports, but I don't know if y'all knew this, but a lot of the developers and community managers and stuff, they all hang out on the Reddit and stuff, so they definitely all saw the Reddit posts and stuff like that, for sure. For sure. More foliage. Okay, let's do that. Oh, heck, I didn't save it again. And we're out of money. Alright, so we see more foliage for that now. What is it? So how is it doing here? Is my wife super cool too? No, she sucks. She sucks. She's grateful that she found me so that I made her not suck anymore. At least that's what I tell people. No, she's fucking awesome. She's one of my favorite. She's one of the favorite people in the entire world to me. So I liked her so much that I decided, hey, we should hang out forever. Super cool wife for a super cool guy. There you go. Thanks, Celio. So, all right. Well, hey, let's go ahead and wrap it up there, folks. Let's do the thing there. I'm for sure just gonna let it run and save up money because we are making money. But I want to get our Timberwolf exhibit looking nice for the next time there. So, and then we could probably put something right here too. As we get more animals and stuff. But yeah, I'm gonna let the game run and get some more animals. I don't hear him and he's getting into something. I already know it and I can't concentrate. I don't want to get that I want to get that video going for the Google Maps stuff. So cool. Hey, if you've hung out this long and you haven't subscribed, be sure to hit the subscribe button. Everyone go watch the Green Hills Zoo video. I just released a brand new Green Hills Zoo from Planet Coaster. So we are just trying to keep that zoo theme going this month, even though we don't have Planet Zoo. So yeah, check out the new episode of Green Hills Zoo where we kind of do like an overview video of it and show some new additions that I threw in last night. So do that, and then like I said, tomorrow we'll take a look at the San Diego Zoo for the Google Maps concept art zoo design video there. And yeah, we'll be live with this again in 2 days, not tomorrow, but the day after that, around 3 p.m. Central Standard Time. So cool. Hey, thanks so much, everyone. Appreciate you as always. And until the next one there, have a good one. Boom. Do that. Do that. Cool. Hey, have a good one. Thanks, y'all. Appreciate it.